All right, how have you been since we talked last?
Um, Much better than the week before,
Why do you think?
because I wasn't freaking out about the goodies that I was eating.
Oh, you weren't judging him anymore.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I appreciated them more rather than just stuffing them into my mouth. I actually tasted them.
God, doesn't that make such a big difference in how you experience it?
Yes, it does.
Right? Because you're present.
And
You're
so,
present with it rather than triggered into survival around the danger of it, right?
that's true. And so,
That's an interesting observation when you think about the previous life that you had, decades of feeling danger with food while you ate it. There's something wrong with this. It's bad for me. I shouldn't be eating this. This is risky. I've done something wrong.
yes, and there's no panic mode, and not and the thinking of, okay, how am I going to fix this as I'm eating it?
To get rid of the
Like,
danger, to get rid of the failure. Yeah. So you're never,
yeah.
would you say, now that you have this experience to compare to, when in your previous binges and emotional eating episodes, or just mindless eating episodes, or celebration episodes, whatever it was, were you really experiencing the food the same way?
Oh, not at all. Um, I thought I was. I thought this was the best thing ever.
Well,
the excuse that I could binge in front of people, and just it's a holiday excuse that everybody else is just eating a lot right now.
Yeah.
But then I could do it not in secret, and it would be completely normal.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people at work were eating a lot of cookies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that we get a lot of holiday goodies sent to us at work from different companies, and for me, those are always like I want to try them, but I in the past want to try them, but I don't want to get started because I know just even before I ate the cookies or whatever treats, I would know, okay, what are you going to do to fix it after you eat all of this?
Mm-hmm.
And without even tasting it at all in the first place, I already knew this is not a good idea, or thought you shouldn't even be thinking about what you're about to eat. So I don't even know if enjoyment was even in the picture. Now that I think about it, because there was this list of forbidden foods, because they aren't diet foods, and so just the thought of eating those cookies, then I knew that I would have to fix it. So it would be either totally avoiding it at that time, but then binging on something later, or just just binging a public binge on the cookies, and not enjoying them because I knew, boy, oh boy, you're going to pay for this. You're going to have to. You're starting your diet tomorrow.
Yeah, and you ruined it anyways.
You're never going to eat another cookie again.
Right, because you've ruined it anyways, and so you might
right.
as well get what bad food you can in, because you're gonna fix it anyways. And so while you have the opportunity, you should take it. So you're just eating and eating and eating, getting sick, and all the while. Would you agree that the euphoria? Would you agree that it was euphoric before? That was actually quite euphoric.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Could you see why some people get confused about that euphoria? They attach it to the pleasure of the food. Why they would do that?
Oh, certainly. I mean, for me, there was a sense of euphoria and planning the binge, and
Mhm.
then uh, when I knew that I was going through with it, no matter what, there would always be I'd be on the fence about it, and
Mhm.
then once I decided that I was going to do it, and I knew there was nothing in my way, like time or people,
Mhm.
like that was the euphoria, like
Yeah.
leading up to it and driving there and just knowing it was going to happen.
Yeah.
That was the best thing ever. Like
I know.
this is.
What
Mm-hmm.
what would you do, how would you what is the best thing ever? Is it really the food? Is it really the binge, or is it the space and time you are giving yourself without shame or guilt about it?
Hmm. Well, the food actually wasn't that great. I mean, if I were to sit down and eat it right now,
Mhm.
it would be, well, what was so great about this thing I was eating? Like, it
Mhm.
tastes, it tastes good, but why aren't I getting this euphoria I was before?
Yeah. Is it the food? Is it the pleasure of the food? Or is it the space and time that you get to eat it without shame or guilt?
It was the space and time
Without shame
without the
and
guilt.
guilt.
Mhm.
It's exciting.
Mhm.
That right there is like, oh, I don't have restrictions. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to have the guilt. I don't have to feel bad about it. I'm gonna do it. I don't have to feel bad about it. And that usually the tipping point to that is when you commit to fixing it when it's over. So the moment you say, I promise I'll fix it, that's like the key that opens the gate into the binge.
Oh yeah, because this was always going to be the last one.
And I will
This is
fix
the
it.
last one ever. Yeah, this is the last one, and
Yeah.
I'm going to fix it.
Yeah, imagine this amount of food then that you were allowing yourself to eat in that period of time, whether it was a day or a week. Like, do you know how many people today it's January, I don't know, 4th, 3rd,
Three.
3rd. How many people spent the last 2 months excessively eating in that freedom, in that space of euphoric freedom, knowing that they were committed to fixing the damages starting now?
Mhm. Oh, I can imagine.
So all the way through
I've
the
done that.
holidays, right?
Mhm.
I understand it. It's like this. So all through the holidays, they don't want the kind of the stifling of feeling restricted from these foods, especially during the holidays when they're in such abundance and they're in the office and there are all these things. And so people who have this fear of those foods during the holidays, it's so much easier in the moment to just say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to give myself freedom, no shame, no guilt, because I will get rid of the damages at the new year. So they spend the entire month over consuming and eating till they were sick, and over and over and over again, drinking until
Mhm.
they're sick, smoking cigarettes till they're sick, thinking that they're going to quit at the end of the year.
Mhm.
Right? And so, like, for people who are shameful about food, it's usually directly tied to body image and the idea of they need to be thinner. And
Yeah.
so that all the while they're accepting and allowing themselves to overconsume and have the outcome of weight gain. So during that time they were willing and allowing of themselves to gain weight, believing that those damages or those consequences would get eliminated. It's like a gamble, right? So how often have you
Yes.
done that over the course of your lifetime? It doesn't have to be during the new year, but just all year long.
Countless.
Well, how do you know how much you weigh right now?
I do. Because I went to take my blood pressure yesterday.
Yeah, and they
at
weigh you.
a
What's your weight?
drugstore, and I asked for them to weigh me 254.
254. And so that concept, if you look at the amount of body fat you have, how much can you attribute to those moments in time that you committed to dieting, giving yourself freedom from feeling restricted and suffocated by not being able to participate?
I see. Probably 100 pounds.
100 pounds. Yeah. The thing is that if you had known that your restrictions that you committed to don't work, create a sense of deprivation, isolation, require you remove yourself from reality with food, and that you wouldn't be able to do it, not because, well, for a variety of reasons, would you still have committed and allowed yourself that euphoric space of freedom with food, knowing that there wasn't going to be a fix-it?
Well, if I knew better, I would say no, but I always thought I knew better.
I know.
Thought that
I'm gonna do it.
Fix it.
Yeah,
this is the last. All during my 20s, this is the last time, because I don't want to go into my 30s doing this again. And then all during my 30s, and then I turned 40, and I was like, okay, here we go. We're gonna.
Now I'm gonna fix it.
You're turning 40, 41, 42, 43. You're gonna get it. After all these years, you're finally gonna figure it out.
Yeah. So what if you knew? What if we can go back to your 20s and we could give you awareness that the actual mode of dieting and restricting food with shame and guilt, with badness and goodness and divisions, putting divisions and dividers around food into bad, dangerous, that way of restricting food would actually stimulate the impulsivity to continue to binge. What would be the resolution? If you could go back and tell yourself that, what would that 20-year-old self do differently?
I would treat food differently.
Well, of course, but that's kind of secondary, I think, too. Treating food differently. Wouldn't you agree right now you're treating food differently?
Yes.
Okay, so why is that? So let's look at why you're wouldn't you agree this is easily treating food differently? Why is that? What had to change for you to get this ease in terms of how you relate to food?
How I viewed food and the power that I no longer give food.
Okay, that's what we're talking about. How did that happen? What had to change for you to have that result?
Oh, because I've accepted that food was just a tool for me to punish myself with, because I was so ashamed of being fat.
Okay, now you're getting it.
And so I don't have to use food to punish myself.
Mm-mm.
I don't have to use food to feel bad about myself.
Mm-mm.
And
dieting to feel bad about yourself.
Exactly. Dieting. If I'm not dieting, food doesn't. There's no euphoria in food. I mean, I enjoy it. There are things I enjoy. I can eat 2 or 3 cookies without the feeling of you just ruined everything. You may as well go clean out the refrigerator.
Because so in essence, what you're saying and what I'm trying to get you to say, or at least trying to encourage you to see if you can see it, is that the only way for you to have this ease with food is to have ease with your body. To not feel bad about your weight. If you don't feel bad about your weight, you don't have to fix anything, which means that whole concept of depriving yourself, which stimulates that binge eating, isn't necessary. The deprivation isn't necessary. So you don't end up having these impulses and shame-based binges.
Yes, because I'm not trying to fix anything right now.
Yeah, you're not trying to fix your weight. And so that's
Right.
kind of what I was like. If you could go back to your knowing what you know now, just about how dieting has impacted your relationship with food and binging,
Oh boy. Mm-hmm.
what would you, the only thing you can tell yourself is don't diet. It doesn't work
Yeah.
anyway. So if it doesn't work, don't use it to negotiate for a binge because it's not going to fix it. And you shouldn't feel bad in the first place, right? You shouldn't feel bad for eating that.
Right.
So then you have to look at, well, why do I feel bad about my weight? Because that's the only reason why I would feel bad about these foods that people say are bad for me. Because of my weight. Right. So you'd really have to look at your weight and ask, is there really something wrong with it? Does it really need to be fixed?
Right. Because that's where the core comes.
Yeah. You kind of have to unravel it. You untwist it, undistort it. You have to take out the core belief system that is the foundation for why you're doing all of this anyways. And you've done it at 254 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who would have thought? Yeah. Who would have thought? Because I guarantee when you were 20, you weren't 254 pounds.
No, I wasn't.
Right? And so it's like what you thought was impossible at 20 is possible now. And don't you agree? It took a lot of suffering for you to really be willing to look at that. To look at your weight. And to really look at it from a position of understanding rather than criticism.
Yeah, and it's been years and years and years, decades now. 20 years of suffering, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Of being told and believing what I was being told. That any amount, even just having a muffin top is bad. Even just that. Even just a little bit extra around the waist.
Having stomach fat is bad.
Mm-hmm. And with the childhood that I had, that just having been told things like that, I believed it. Mm-hmm. Like if you're not thin, you're not pretty. There's nothing pretty or attractive or tasteful about having any extra weight on you.
Yeah, which symbolizes your internal worth, right? So that if you aren't attractive, you are intrinsically not attractive. You're not, it's like taking it personal, right? That is a personal definition of your worth. The symbolism of that, if you look at it, it's like, well, thinnerness or fatterness is just an arbitrary size thing. You would never look at a dog, for example, that is overweight or obese and think that that dog is worth less than a dog that is lean. Would you?
Never. No.
So the difference is as a human, you've attached that symbolism of worth to leanness. So fatness equates to lack of worth. And there's very clear definitions, right? Like you've said, it's really any body fat around your waist, stomach fat, anything around your stomach. So that's the visual that has been like brainwashed into you through marketing, through media, through what is promoted, to what your friends, your family, your mother, what they discriminated against, what they praised, right? And so when you internalize that as a trustworthy, a truth, then you end up have to be aware of how much fat do I have, how much is on my stomach, and then you're positioned to always be critical of your waist, of your stomach, of your arms, of your neck, of the things that you were heard growing up and were programmed to believe were threats to your value and threat to being praised. So you can see then why you would project into your relationship with food a similar attitude, right? The badness of your waist is what you're seeing in the bad food. That bad food, which you're told, because again, it's all told to you from an industry that sells this as a rescuer to you. These bad foods make you fat. And so that shame attached to fat is projected into the shame of eating those foods. So that if you eat those foods, you are bad. The badness in the food. Because of the badness in your stomach fat. Which means there's badness in who you are. Right?
Yeah.
So you have to question that. Without, I think what happens, and I know that if we're recalling this for you now that you're free, would you say you're over it? Would you say you're completely over it at this point?
I am over it. I give about 98%. Just because the holidays and these goodies had a couple triggers for me. In that I had the good and bad talks with myself, which I hadn't had in several weeks. And so, maybe those are even just natural sometimes. Just for anybody.
It's you're hearing your programming. It's how can you not have that still there when you did that for years? The question is, do you believe it? So looking back at it, this is where we're looking back at it. So that 2% that might still be there. That 2%, right? You look at and ask, is this worthy of shame? Is it worthy of shame?
Absolutely not. Yeah, no, I know now that it is not. And I knew that in those good, bad conversations I was having with myself during the holidays. I knew it, but I thought, why am I even thinking this? I shouldn't,
Well, we talked about the fact that you're still relying on that mental construction of how to eat it. And you needed to witness that rather than going into the actual physical sense of eating it. Like, listen to the body, taste the food. Don't use that mental construction anymore to eat those foods. It's a sign that you don't feel safe around them, which is in relation to body fat, right? And so if you're going to do this, you have to give yourself that first jump into the water, right? It's like if you're going to learn to swim, you got to jump into the water, And so it's going to take a second for you to feel what buoyancy feels like. It's going to take a second for you to really taste that food and listen to how the mouth is responding to it and how you feel physically when you eat it. You have to do it for the first time, and this might have been the first time you've done it, right? After our last conversation, after we talked about it. Taste the food. Put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
Get rid of the shame and judgment. You got to let your body tell you how much it needs based on this sensory system rather than a mentally constructed limitation around the way it looks and some concept of restriction, right? That's all mental. So would you say that being able to eat and taste the food and to be present with that food, did you get a sense of when to stop?
Oh, certainly.
Was it pretty obvious?
It is very obvious.
Yeah, because the goal that we talked about that I gave you was just don't get sick. That's it. You're looking at a position where you're like, oh, I could get sick. Then you stop. Don't get sick.
Yeah.
Did that help?
And what I did was I looked at the cookies and I chose, because I already know I can taste them before I even eat them. So I know what they're gonna taste like. So I chose like the 3 best that I liked. And I said, you know what, I'll eat these, and if I want more, I'll eat more. And I ate those 3, and I was good. I mean, they were delicious.
Okay, so any binge eater listening to this, any binge eater who listens to this is going to say she chose her favorite. Now, you and I both know why you would do that. Well, of course. But the whole fear-based position would say, oh my God, she's not going to be able to handle it. It doesn't taste too good. That's like saying, but she's going to feel ashamed about it. She's going to need to restrict it. And you did exactly what I told you to do, which is rely on the body. Rely on the body. Oh my God, kick ass. You just kicked butt.
Thank you.
Oh my God, because you're right. That would have been what I would have asked you to do. Don't go get the work. Go get your favorite. Taste it. Why tiptoe around what you're gonna have to figure out? You know.
Exactly, because then I would eat around them, thinking, oh, I'll just eat some crappy ones, and I won't want any more.
Yeah.
But
Oh my
then,
God. Do you hear how no, that's not what you should do. Do you hear that?
right? Exactly.
Oh my God. So awesome. So you went with, what do I want to get pleasure out of? What brings me
Yes.
joy? And I'm going to participate and experience. Now, I have a question for you. Did you find that they didn't taste as awesome as you imagined them to taste?
No, and
Okay, so answer that question again, because it was no, they didn't taste as good, or no, they tasted as amazing.
Okay.
I have no.
They did taste amazing.
I just want to say I don't have any. I'm asking the question just out of curiosity. I don't have some preconceived idea of what that answer should be.
Oh, okay. Yes, they did taste amazing. They did. I don't eat cookies very often. I'd rather have the chip and dip than the sweets.
Yeah, me too.
But these cookies are from Costco, and they're fabulous cookies.
I love Costco.
If you're gonna eat cookies, these holiday Costco cookies are the ones to eat.
Okay, so give us some details. What are they called, and where are they located? Are they in the bakery? Like where the croissants are, and the cheesecake, and the...
It's a red gift tin.
Oh, okay. So are they like butter?
Red tin.
Are they
were a gift.
Okay, red tin, and they're like butter bread, like shortbread?
Yeah, they're shortbread covered in chocolate.
Okay, I'll look for them.
It's a big red tin, and there's 2 sections of cookies inside, but there's probably about 15 different types of cookies.
Okay, so would you suggest people eat those and feel bad about themselves?
Oh, not at all.
Isn't that right? And should you feel like you've done something wrong when you eat them?
No.
Should you have some preconceived idea of how many you should be able to eat and what you can't eat?
No.
So tell us how you ate them and how that turned out.
Well, I picked the ones that had the shortbread, the ones that weren't completely covered in chocolate. So it has the square, and it has the shortbread and the chocolate on top of it. And then they have some that are like little wafer sticks, but it's mocha flavor. I don't drink coffee, but I love the flavor of mocha.
Yeah.
And espresso.
Mm-hmm.
And the tin tells you what type of cookie it's going to be, so you can look at the tin and read it. So I chose the mocha because I love mocha flavor. And then I chose the shortbread cookie because I like cookie with chocolate. And then there was another one. It was cute. It was a heart. Just like a wafer covered in chocolate. Mm-hmm. A heart. And they were super yummy. I mean, I didn't shove them in my mouth either. I enjoyed them. I mean, they're cookies, so they didn't last that long. But
yeah, but we had talked about, remember when I said to you, eat them as if you're blind?
They're really good, and I didn't stand there at the tin and eat them. I took them back to my desk, where I could just kind of sit and appreciate them and not shovel them.
So when you were done, did you feel a sense of completion with it? Like, it's complete. I'm good. I don't need any more. I am now satisfied. It is over. Moving forward. Did you ever get that sense?
I did.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second, because typically when you're dieting and you're eating something you feel bad about and you believe you shouldn't be eating it, or you should be limiting the amount of food, that sense of completion is very difficult to sense or even exist, right?
Yes, and that's very new for me.
Right? Is that feeling of it, I'm done, I can move on. Your mind no longer is holding on to that thought of the cookies, was it? It's released from it. That right there is like, oh, sweet Jesus of freedom, mercy is arrived. Right?
Yes.
That's why I'm bringing it up. That is a very, very specific sense that binge eaters understand. When you're in it, there's never is completion. It's always there. I need more, I need more, I need more. You never really get that sense of done. After recovery,
right. You're done when the food is gone.
When it is
not
gone.
When, right.
And even then, you'll go get more. You would have gone
right.
into fast food, had another cheeseburger, had some ice cream. You never really get that sense of completion or I've had enough. Now that you're no longer pressurized to lose weight, you no longer are ashamed, you no longer are fearful of the cookies, and you allow yourself to be present and to be open to tasting it and to understand it from the mouth. I'm going to understand what I'm eating from the mouth. And when I feel satisfied before I'm sick, it is complete. And so that completion point comes to you and you feel satisfied and it feels like, and it is over. Your mind no longer has to hold on to the thought of them. And now it's like food is no longer even in your mind at all. Because you did it. You ate and it's complete. I think that is so, so relevant to understanding now that you are on the other side, how different just that alone is.
Yeah, and it is an odd feeling.
Of completion.
Yes.
Remember we talked about, it's like there's an illusion when you're dieting that you're gonna hit a destination and it will be complete. You'll hit a spot in its destination and it's over. You never get it. Right? You never, ever, ever feel that way because food is always running away from you and you're always chasing that sense of completion with food. It never stops. Right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you just live in shame because you feel terrible about yourself. In this situation, you experienced a sense of, I've had enough. I'm moving on. I don't need to think about it. After eating the favorite cookies from the tin.
Yeah. And I knew they weren't going anywhere.
That's important.
If I wanted one later, I could have some, or whatever later.
Yep.
I could have more. They were sitting right there.
Do you agree that thought, what you just said, that they're not going anywhere. If I want more later, I can have more. That ultimately allows you to release them from your mind. You don't have to hold on to them. You don't have to think of them. You don't have to be aware of them. You no longer, because they're not going anywhere.
Correct. And I'm not obsessing about them or the fact that I just ate some.
You didn't do anything wrong.
To fix it.
Nothing's been ruined. Nothing's been harmed. And that is why the rest of the tin is available to you. Do you see how that works?
Yeah.
If you had felt bad about eating those cookies, would the rest of those cookies been available to you later?
Not in the. No, I would have eaten so many of them or gone and found something else.
Well, they wouldn't have been available to you. So just stay in the simplicity of the thought here. If those cookies were bad for you and you felt bad about eating them and felt you had done something wrong, would you have had the ability to go back and get more later?
No.
Because you're not allowed to. You shouldn't do it. So now that the cookies are, it's like that mirage is starting to move away from you. The cookies are moving away. What happens to that sense of, I've had enough. I'm good. I feel like I'm satisfied, especially when the cookies are no longer available to you.
It's okay. You don't think about them.
Yeah, well.
You can get cookies somewhere else if you have to.
Well, that's now. Before, Before, those cookies were going away. You did something bad. You shouldn't be eating them. You're not allowed to eat those. That cookie tin was eliminated. We had to get rid of them. Right? Now what happens to that sense of completion with the cookies?
There was a desperation. Like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. Oh my God, I got to get some more. I'm still thinking about them. They're right there. Oh my God, I got to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. And so you're like, I'll just eat them. I'm going to get rid of them. You eat them. Getting rid of them.
May as well.
Right? Because I've already ruined it. And so you're never really getting that sense of completion. So yeah, that's another thing I remember very, very clearly. And I still feel that way. But to me, it's just now second nature. It's been 20 years for me. But that sense of it is complete. You know, if I eat a chocolate or some M&Ms or peanut M&Ms or, I mean, oh my God, the delicious cakes and sweets and candies that I've had around me, and I've participated in all of it. It's always going to be there. I can always get more. All this Valentine's candy is now out. All of it is always around, all year round, all the time, hugely abundant. Mm-hmm. It's like, so when I do eat them and I'm present with them, no shame, no guilt, no sense of I've done something wrong, no fear, no danger of it. I'm present with them and I have just enough to be satisfied and it is done and complete and over and I don't have to think about it anymore. And my whole mind is moved forward. There's no energy in any way gravitating to that food, whether it's a negative emotion or a positive emotion, there's nothing at it. That right there, to someone who is suffering in binge eating or even anorexia or anything in between, what you and I are describing sounds like a fantasy world. How do they eat without all of that energy going from what they did wrong, how they're going to fix it? Can they get more? You shouldn't have it. You know, all of that freaking baggage is gone. Can you believe it?
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Well, can you believe it? I'm just describing what you've recently been experiencing, right? That you're eating and there's no energy. It's just over. I can always get more. I don't feel bad about it anymore, so I don't have any shame or guilt around it. I enjoy it, and then it's over, and my mind is not even attached to it. I forget about them. And they go into background. Like, you forget about it. Complete forget. That is, go back to where you were when you first started talking to me. That right there. Doesn't that feel like something that would have been impossible to experience?
Oh, I could never have imagined being where I am right now.
Yeah.
No. Like the thought of eating, like being told it's okay to enjoy holiday goodies at 254 pounds. Like, I've never had anybody ever tell me, go for it. You know? Never. Like,
no, without shame and guilt. Without feeling that you should be afraid that those are bad for you. Right? That's the other thing. It's just, even if they say go for it, there's always this, but you can only have this many. You can only have this many because it's dangerous.
You want to?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying it. I'm saying it's okay, but I don't mean it, right? That would be somebody else talking to me, but I've always had love, hate, good, bad relationships with any kind of food. Mm-hmm. And I never imagined that I would be able to come out on the other end on January 1st, not be on a diet. Like, it's January 3rd, and there's no diet for me to blow.
Mm-mm. And you've done nothing wrong during the holidays that you have to fix.
Exactly.
Think about that. That's one of those things where I think people don't really understand or get the gravity of how harmful dieting is. If going back to the question I asked you previously or earlier, if you knew that the diets you were committing to fix the damages of the binge you were giving yourself permission to do. If you knew the diet that it was not going to be fixed, it wasn't an adequate fix. In fact, the fix is what causes the binge. But if you knew that the binge wasn't, the consequences of the binge weren't going to get fixed, any weight gain was never going to get removed, would you still give yourself permission to binge?
No.
Would the binge exist at all?
No, because I would know that the binge would have no power.
Well, I also...
It would be pointless.
It is pointless, but the other part of it too, and I think this is what you're touching on right now, is that the shame associated to the food is only there because of the diet, which is only there because of shame about your weight. So if there is no diet, there is no shame about the food. There is no there is no sense of you've done something wrong. That is gone. So what happens when there is no diet? There is no good, bad, I shouldn't do, you should do. When that whole entire concept of duality, good or bad, division that was placed on food because of dieting, if that didn't exist, what happens to the binge?
That's gone because there's shame and guilt related to food is gone.
Because of the restrictions. The only way to get rid of those restrictions then is to get rid of the shame and guilt about your weight. Right? So you can see there's really, this is more than one thing. There's two main things that are pulled into this. There is the shame and guilt about your weight that then creates the shame and guilt about food and the need to create that division. So we can eliminate the dieting. We can say there is no shame and guilt with food ever again. That immediately removes the binging, right? But in order for that part to be permanent, you have to get rid of the shame that you have about your weight. And you have to make it unconditional.
Because you're binging because you're ashamed of your weight. Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense? So this,
yeah,
I mean, I think that's something you've kind of struggled with, is really separating those two. They are separate, but they're connected. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So you're correct. I no longer have these feelings with food. I no longer, of course, because we got rid of the dieting. You no longer shame food. You no longer feel there's something wrong. You don't play moral games with food anymore. To you, that's a cause of why you feel bad about eating, why you feel that you've done something wrong, why you feel like you failed, why you feel the sense of need to be released from restrictions, because the restrictions really keep you isolated from reality. Right? There's all those negative consequences to the mammal part of our brain. The inhumane aspect of dieting is there. And no wonder you want relief. Everybody would want relief. But underneath of that is because you feel bad about your weight. So again, one of the first things I do with binge eaters is we go right into releasing the shame and guilt of food. You are not to worry about food. You are not to, feel bad about it. It is immediately relieving. And binging, typically, for all of the binge eaters I work with, immediately stops because the pressure's gone. You haven't done anything wrong. So for the first time in your life, someone's giving you permission to not feel bad about food. To not feel bad.
And if you eat something and you enjoy it, it's okay to like food. Like,
taste it.
It's okay to enjoy.
Yeah, so it's like that.
That you once were labeled bad. It's okay to eat some.
Yeah, so they get immediate
hamburger and fries or whatever, and enjoy. Wow, this really tastes good. Mm-hmm. That was a great lunch. That was delicious. And then you move on. Whatever you're gonna do.
Mm-hmm. So that first step we did is pause this issue with your weight. We paused it. Don't worry about your weight. Let's go into get rid of your pressure around the weight loss. That immediately gives people this sense of relaxation with food. But once the issues with weight come back, like I really need to lose weight, I went to the doctor, I've got blood pressure problems, I have diabetes, then all of a sudden people can have an uptick in their food issues again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's, I think, what happened for you a little bit. And it's everybody's kind of unique in what creates that uptick. But then we have to go back in and readdress and solidify the fact that if you don't want to suffer anymore with these food issues, you really do need to permanently remove the concept of dieting. And the only way to do that is to permanently accept your body without conditions. Meaning, even if you are 254 pounds and 5'2", that you will always have these skin folds, that you will have your knee pain. And so you go into releasing and accepting that. What's amazing is that the back side of this, without any intention whatsoever, is reduced food consumption. Without effort. Notice how we don't talk about it. We're not thinking about it. That's not what I'm praising at all.
Right. We haven't talked about that at all.
No, it's just, it doesn't matter to me, because that to me is like, well, of course that's what happens. That's your natural way of eating. The other stuff was so unnatural. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it had all that downside binge eating consequences. So it's like, so many people say, Robin, but what about my health? I'm like, well, if this is about your health, you might want to stop what you're doing. Because that's what's causing the stress to your health. Right? You've completely eliminated dieting. You have completely eliminated the morality of food. You have stopped trying to lose weight at 254 pounds. You have about 100 pounds that you gained in that diet concept. And what's happened to how you've related to food? What's happened? What happened to the binging? What happened to the anxiety? What happened to...
It's not there.
So in terms of your, the integrity around wanting to be healthy, would you say now you are healthier?
I can feel that I am.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the depression and anxiety that I had, especially the anxiety around food and binging.
Right. Well, and you should physically feel better. Physically feel better.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, and you probably haven't even lost any weight. And you feel physically better.
Yeah. I do, and my blood pressure's already lower.
Yeah.
A little lower.
Yeah.
Than it was when we first started. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of people get hooked on, I have to lose the weight for health, and they don't realize that the pressure to lose weight for health is actually causing the problem. Because it creates that relationship with food that is so distorted. Right?
Yes. Because then you feel like you need to diet.
Correct.
Any type of pressure to lose weight automatically is diet and restriction.
Correct. So that pressurizes your relationship with food. So which is a different relationship. That's why people don't understand it. They have a hard time really comprehending why this idea that I have to lose weight for health ultimately is why you end up binging. They don't see that it's because this pressure to be thinner puts this pressure on you to restrict food. All of a sudden, that's bad food. You can't eat that food. You can't eat that food. And how that impacts that perception of being satisfied with food is now something you're chasing like a mirage. And all the while you're over consuming, chasing that mirage. So if you really want to impact your health and you really want to make your health better, you should stop dieting. Stop dieting. And it doesn't mean you have to stop restricting. It's stop shaming food. Stop saying bad food and there's bad food. The whole concept of bad food to me is triggering. It's like such a primal thing to say that's unhealthy. That's like saying that's unsafe. It's toxic. You're going to die. Because that's how our brain was wired for millennia to deal with, foraging food that could have poisoned us. It's like that's kind of a big deal. And so you're saying that about bread, which is not going to poison you. But yet our psychology is saying it's going to poison us, but it doesn't. It tastes good. So you can't have it. Well, I'm going to get more. Well, now you're getting toxic because you're eating a whole loaf. Not looking at the actual shaming and judging of the bread as the source of the problem. This is why the diet industry will never admit that what they have done in terms of using morality behind good and bad food based on the premise of morality around are you fat or thin or healthy or not healthy. They would never admit that that is actually a primary cause to what they are calling an obesity epidemic, which is in reality a food shaming epidemic.
Certainly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Aren't you so glad this is over?
I am. It's a new normal that I have to get used to.
Yeah.
Like I love it, but it's new. Like not thinking about not judging food
Mm-hmm.
is very strange to me. Like it's a new feeling. Like
Yeah.
I'm treading on like a frozen lake.
Yes. So what I want
and
you
I'm
to,
wondering, okay,
when is it going to
like
break?
I'm not completely comfortable with
Okay.
it yet.
Yeah. Well, this is how you're going to get comfortable. Okay. Understand that this freedom comes because you are no longer feeling bad about your weight. That's the part that needs to be clear to you. This freedom with food, the freedom from shame, the freedom of morality only exists because I no longer am trying to lose weight or feel that I have to lose weight or that there's a need to lose weight. As soon as the need to lose weight arises, what's going to happen with your relationship with food?
It becomes judgmental again. It gets compartmentalized again.
And what
Good,
happens?
bad,
And what happens?
restriction, then binging.
You got it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more that you solidify that knowledge and awareness, it will really force you, maybe force isn't a good word. It will give you the understanding of how important this decision is to accept your body without conditions, unconditionally. If you want to make this freedom permanent, you need to accept your body unconditionally, permanently.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do if you lose weight? What if the body starts losing weight naturally because you're no longer, hurting it?
Well, it doesn't matter. Like, and then I get new clothes because I keep swimming in the ones I'm in. I mean, I don't want to go. I don't want to be caught in the I'm losing weight.
Why?
I don't want it.
Why?
Because I don't want there to be a value tied to losing weight.
Yeah, what happens if there is value tied to losing weight? What happens?
Then I end up back where I was with the weight has to come off.
And then what happens to your relationship with food?
It goes back to good, bad.
You got it.
Puts me back where I was.
Yep. So the key is just not caring. The word that I've used is indifference. You need to be indifferent about it. I don't want to care, because if I care, and that means I have to manage it, which means I have to manage food. And as soon as I have to manage food, my relationship with it gets all freaking haywire. I don't want to go haywire anymore. I'm sick and tired of that. I did that for 20 years, right? So just...
I haven't thought of that. Interesting.
That's why I bring it up. That there's the vulnerability that you're feeling, like I'm on thin ice here, could break, is you've got to go around and give yourself an understanding of how your weight has played an impact, or how the fluctuations in weight, the relativity in weight, has impacted how you relate it to food. So if you care about losing weight, you're in trouble. If you care about gaining weight, you're in trouble. If you care about whether or not you maintain, you're in trouble. You have to go completely indifferent to any condition. So that's what I mean when I say you have to accept your weight unconditionally, which means if you're this weight today, you accept it. If you're that weight tomorrow, you accept it. If you're higher the next day, you accept it. You're constantly accepting whatever it is. You become indifferent. Last time we talked about the fear of gain, that you have to be okay, that if you give yourself this freedom, that your body might gain weight. You have to be okay with that. Clearly, you were
Right.
okay with that this week since we've talked last, because you've been able to enjoy the cookies without worrying, having to say in your mind, the mentally limiting it in your mind. I should only have 2 or 3. You didn't have to do that anymore because you no longer have fear promoting that type of control, right?
Right. It wasn't restricting. It was just, it wasn't restricting myself to a few. It was like just going, I will have a few because maybe a few is all I need to feel satisfied. I don't need to, I already know that I don't need to eat half the box to feel satisfied.
Yeah, so you can just rely on your body.
Chocolate.
Yeah, just rely on your mouth, rely on your sense. Like if I put 5 in front of me, I will eat however many it is for me to go, I think I'm done. And you might not eat all 5. You might eat 2.5. You might eat 3 and then 2 bites of the 4th. Who knows? In that moment, you're complete. And the reason you get that freedom is because you didn't do anything wrong, which means you are allowed to have some later if you want. There's nothing wrong with them. If it sounds good to you, have them. There's no morality around any of it. Because you're no longer feeling fearful about gaining weight. You've accepted that. Again, this all goes back to the acceptance of your weight. All the freedom with food is in relation to the freedom of your body to be whatever it is. Whether it's bigger, thinner, or anything in between, your indifference is really the key here. You stay indifferent to it. What's the likelihood this freedom is going to go away?
Oh, very unlikely.
Very unlikely. So what does that do to that feeling that you said, this is new, Robin? I don't know. What happens to that feeling when you are aware that it is directly tied to the freedom you give your body to be whatever size it's going to be?
It feels more secure.
Yeah. It solidifies, is what I call it. It's no longer liquid. It's like solid. Doesn't move. As long as your indifference about your weight doesn't move, this relationship with food isn't going to move either. It's very stable.
Okay.
Very stable. I've, over the course of 20 years since my full and complete recovery, I've had 3 babies. I've moved, oh my God, over 10 times. Started a business, expanded the business, ended the business, filed bankruptcy, lost houses, bought houses, had my mother die of cancer, right? And this relationship with food is solid as a rock. Why? Because I just don't give a shit about my weight, one way or the other.
That's amazing.
It's really easy. Now you're getting it. It's so easy. This takes nothing. Literally, it takes nothing. In terms of physical, there's no physical effort here at all.
Well, I will continue practicing that.
Awesome.
I think this week should be easier.
Yeah, if you're more conscious about it now, like, oh my God, see those connections. It's just going to be, it is going to be easy for you. Like, oh yeah. It becomes a very conscious decision. To this day, I would rather be 500 pounds than to be in that messy relationship with food and exercise. That was just horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, I can say the same. I mean, the years of
just horrible.
Depression, guilt, shame,
paralysis.
Always the energy of always trying to fix something forever. Yeah. Always trying to fix it.
God, that's just so terrible.
It is not worth it.
It is unrelenting suffering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Like I said, it's like psychological paralysis, total and complete spiritual paralysis, life paralysis, and continuous extreme degrees of work and mental chaos. And then constantly having to fix everything. So you're working like 5 times more than you should. And so it's like, if all I have to do is be indifferent about my body and to accept it for what it is without feeling bad about it, without shame, without guilt, and accept other people's criticism of it, and oh my God, so easy. Compared to the suffering. So easy. It's effortless. If there was anything you could say to someone who is in the state you were when we first started working together, what would you recommend? What would you say to someone who's been suffering for decades, believing there's no way out? What would you say?
Call Robin, number one. But if they didn't have a phone, they couldn't talk to you.
I'm talking like if there's anything that you want them to know.
I would want them to know that they are beautiful and loved no matter what size they are, and that the power that they're giving food over themselves, over their weight, over their shame it won't be fixed by how they think that it's going to be fixed. And that it's just not worth the pain. And it's not worth the anxiety, the depression.
Oh, trying to fix it.
Of trying to fix it. And there is a way out.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not trying to fix it. And at the time, I know that it would sound contradictory or counterintuitive.
Crazy. Sounds crazy.
Yes, but the way to stop the chaos of the cycles of whatever you're in is to release the power of the food over your daily life and to not associate food with your worth or your weight with your worth.
Mm-hmm.
And to just eat without negotiations. Eat what you like, as much as you like, as much as you can handle, without thinking that this is going to be the last meal before you diet. This is going to be your last binge before the new year. That you're going to have a meal that you enjoy, and then you're going to move on and find something else. And not to constantly suffer for food and to be sin. Because life is not about being sin. It has nothing to do with being sin.
Mm-mm.
Like, I am 100 times happier than I was at the beginning of November. And my weight is the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. And I never ever thought I would say that I would be happy at this weight. I thought it was impossible. I always thought that I had to weigh 135 pounds for me to be happy, for me to be able to communicate with people, be the center of attention without being embarrassed, being able to connect with people. I couldn't do that because I was always judging myself all the time, always judging what I was talk one-on-one to people. I was so embarrassed about my weight. I would lie to them and tell them, just in casual conversation, oh yeah, I joined Weight Watchers, just so that they would, because I always thought somebody was judging me when they looked at me. I thought, oh God, she's so fat, she's gross. So I wanted to nip that real quick in the bud and let them know how I just started a diet.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you worry about it. I'm taking care of this. And so when I meet people now for the first time, my weight, I don't even think about my weight. I can look at people in the eyes and connect with them now without caring about what they think of me. They may think I'm the grossest thing they've ever seen. I don't care. I don't care. They may think I'm the prettiest thing they've ever seen. It doesn't matter to me now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how my body looks, it's not a concern to me. My weight is no concern to me. I don't care.
And what has that done to your relationship with food?
It makes me not care about food in that there's no good or bad. Mm-hmm. I eat what I want, when I want, without feeling bad about it. There's no internal dialogue.
Don't you agree? It's given you freedom with food. The freedom that you were chasing, you have reached that destination. So the destination is there. You reached it. Freedom.
Yes, I have a great relationship with food.
Yeah, so now it's relaxed. You have a relaxed and free relationship with food so that you don't have to think about it all the time.
Yes, and there were times when I would hate going to the grocery store to food shop. I literally did not want to be there because I hated everything that was in the store. Like, I didn't want to grocery shop. I didn't want to be in the store. I felt it sounds strange, but I felt so overwhelmed just being in the normal grocery store. Mm-hmm. Because I knew I had to buy all these diet foods that I really didn't want. Mm-hmm. And it was like, why am I even doing this? Like, I would get depressed food shopping.
Totally.
I know it sounds strange, but I would. I'm just like, why am I don't want to be here. I don't want to be around all of this food. You know, it sort of makes sense to me at the time, but I don't know if anybody else has ever had that issue where food shopping is just used to be the worst thing in the world.
It's too stressful, and it's full of shame, and it's embarrassing to go, and you think people are watching you, people are looking at what you're putting in your cart. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, I understand. All right, my dear. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you.